Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Clara. I'm the Marketing and Communication Manager here at BCast. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a fairly broad topic, as you can see on my screen. So in this webinar, which will be rather short, you'll see with very concrete examples, we're going to be tackling teamwork and flexibility. So I'm just gonna wait for everyone to get here, make sure that you can see and hear me. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to write them and share them in the Livestorm chat. All right, perfect. Great. I think everyone has gotten here. So if everyone's okay with it, I think we're ready to go. All right. So just to dive in a little bit at BCast, we have a lot of users and clients who work in a hybrid mode. So this means that they spend part of their week at the office and another part at home. And I think we can all agree that remote work isn't really a new topic today. I mean, nearly 30% of employees practice remote work, and it's definitely a trend that's becoming more and more widespread and that we can find in really different types of jobs. So when we talk about remote work, I think we can say that it was really pushed during COVID. And it's a practice that a lot of people appreciated because it offered them greater flexibility when it came to their daily lives. And for many employees, I think that when we talk about remote work, it really means saving time, especially in public transport. It also allows for better time management when it comes to your job, to your work, greater autonomy. You're usually more focused, things like that. So there's a lot of great parts about remote work, but we do have to remember that the fact that remote work arrived so quickly due to COVID and that a lot of people were kind of forced into it means that we never really learned to work remotely at all. So this was really new for people. And I think for employees and managers, when it came to going back to normal and working in more of a hybrid setting, this was really new for everyone. And we don't necessarily have all the best practices. We're learning as we go. And so this is a real challenge today to ensure balance and well-being and also obviously productivity. And when working remotely with teams and colleagues who will probably be scattered all over the world now. So, for those of you who don't know, at BCast, we are a 100% remote company. So, everyone works remotely all the time since January 1st, 2024. Relatively new, we've always been a hybrid company. So, going full remote was the next step. And as you can imagine, we have had our fair share of ups and downs when it comes to remote working and having and managing remote teams. And above all, I think we've really learned to work better together in a remote setting. And this has a lot of tips, and this definitely has a lot of information information that I want to share with you today. So first of all, I think that we all want to have more flexibility. That's definitely part of the appeal when it comes to working remotely, teleworking, however you want to call it. But that also means that we have to learn to separate our personal life from our professional life. And for managers, remote work can be seen as a real challenge to be able to kind of follow up on your team's progress, ensure collaboration without really falling into micromanagement where you want to know at every second of every day what your team is doing, what are they up to, things like that. And that can add pressure because as a manager, you want to stay on top of things, but how do you do this without falling into micromanagement, especially when you're so far away from the people you work with and the people you're managing? So in this webinar, I wanted us to look together at some lessons and best practices that we've learned at BCast and allow you, whether you're an employee or a manager, to really find that balance between the moments spent working with your team and the moments where you're trying to find that flexibility that allows you to be more autonomous and just serene in your remote work environment. And the first thing I want to share with you is the notion of asynchronous. Just making sure that everyone is following along. Okay, great. You can see my slide. Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining in. let me know if you have any questions. I'll do quick little pauses and checks along the way just to make sure that this is clear for everybody. All right, so jumping back into asynchronous mode. So the first thing that we saw at BCAST is that being remote makes us want to strengthen ties and really seek out better visibility in everyone's work. And so the solution that seemed the most logical for us was to have meetings. And we quickly found ourselves spending a lot of time in short to long meetings and basically just to like go through very quick subjects, little topics, making small decisions. And this just wasn't really productive for us. It was also quite frustrating because people were managing their time differently. So you have some people that when they work remotely, they may want to start a little sooner in the day. They'll start a little earlier. And then other people will more like night owls and aren't really early birds, that's for sure, and will probably want to work a little bit afterwards. So depending on the contract you have, of course, people can kind of organize their time differently. And so this made having these quick meetings that usually would be very easy in an office building, this made it very difficult for us to do in a remote setting. And so basically, we quickly realized that there wasn't really any point in having so many meetings like that. And we started to really prioritize asynchronous meetings. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, on BCAST, you have the possibility to create asynchronous sessions synchronous sessions, not asynchronous, synchronous sessions like the one I'm presenting to you today. And this means that I have control over the presentation. I am the facilitator of this meeting, and I'm the one who makes the slides move, and I have full control over this presentation. But on BCAST, you also have the possibility to create asynchronous sessions. And this means that you will be able to share your presentation with your activities to a colleague, and then this person will be able to scroll through the slides and kind of go through it at their own pace. So this is really important because this means that you don't really need to have a real live meeting. You just need to share your presentation with the people concerned and kind of ask them to respond to these activities before a specific date. So for example, sometimes I host asynchronous meetings where I just share a BCAS session with like an activity. Maybe I'll try to poll. I'll create a little poll just to get people's reactions or their opinions on a subject. And I'll just say, okay, well, look through these slides, and at the end of the presentation, tell me like yes or no, and that's how we'll move on from there. And I'll just ask them to look at this slide before this date. And that means that they have maybe 5 or 6 days to go through it. And that way, I mean, it's not rushed on my end. I can manage my own time, and then my colleagues can then do this presentation and go through it at their own pace as well. So for those of you who do a lot of project management, I really recommend asynchronous for progressing on small tasks, and then live meetings for follow-up points every 2 weeks, for example. 1, 2, or 3 weeks. It really depends on the type of project you're managing, but it's really interesting to see how asynchronous will allow you to really save time later in meetings. I know that from experience, when we do asynchronous meetings, we'll really be able to kind of check on little topics and go through and make small decisions. And then when we meet up for a 2-week progress review, then we'll be able to say, okay, well, this has already been dealt with. This is okay. So now let's get to the heart of the topic and really have 30 minutes that are fully productive and where we're not going over what has or hasn't been done in the past few days or weeks. And what I particularly like about asynchronous is that it also really promotes autonomy and therefore gives you more of a flexibility when it comes to your schedule. And I really like that. I like working in an agile way and kind of making my own schedule during the week. So that's really important for me. And I think it's important for a lot of people to find that flexibility in their work today. So when I receive an asynchronous BCAS session, what I do is that I just know that I can kind of block out a time slot in the day to participate and share my opinion. So if I have a very busy morning, I'll probably do it in the afternoon, which allows me to really organize my time and feel more agile. And so for those of you who work in hybrid mode, it's also an excellent way to limit any space-time constraints. So instead of having a meeting where some people will be in person and others or will be remote, it's really an opportunity to allow everyone to participate and share their opinion on a subject without having to find a time slot that suits everyone. And I'm going to show you an example of an asynchronous meeting, because when I tell people that I do this, they usually tell me, okay, but like what type of meeting can I do asynchronously? What type of meeting doesn't have to be live? And I'll show you right now. This is a DACI template, and basically it allows you to get feedback in a very effective way. And so when I want to organize a feedback session, what I do is I create an asynchronous session where I import this DACI template. So this is a template that already exists in Bcast. You just have to import it in your Bcast session and it'll be super quick to do. And then I share this session with the people who participated in the project with me. And I often give them like a week to share their ideas and give me feedback. And then I take the time to look at each person's feedback a bit. And if I see that everything's fine, I'll just make a summary, like a quick meeting report that I'll share with them by email, to have just a written record of what was shared. But sometimes I'll see that there were a lot of issues that were raised. So for example, here, as you can see, what's great about the DACI is it's basically just a 4-part feedback process where you can share what you think we should drop, things that didn't work and you want to get rid of, things that you think we're missing, and perhaps we'd like to add this into the next product launch project, and then things that we should absolutely keep that were great, that really helped you, and things that we can improve on. So it's really great for continuously improving processes. And here, as you can tell, and as you can see on what I'm sharing with you, we don't have that many problems. I think that if I saw a DACI like this, I wouldn't have to set a live meeting. I would just be able to write a report and tell everyone, okay, this was great, thanks so much. What we've decided is that 2 people voted. As you can see, you have the little sticker box, and that means that if, for example, I was participating in this feedback session, I could say, oh, well, I actually think that the tutorial video for clients was great as well. And I can just go ahead and bring and vote for this idea as well. And so that means that me as the facilitator of this meeting, I can just then go and see, okay, so this idea was a little bit shared. People thought the same thing. This was definitely something that everyone thought. Okay, well, perhaps people didn't really think that this is something we should improve on, etc. But if I see that there are a lot of things to improve, that there are a lot of things that we should drop, not a lot of ideas on what we could add, then that's the time, that's the moment where I understand that because a lot of issues were raised, I can schedule a meeting so that we can dig a little deeper into each person's ideas and really find solutions together. So just keep in mind that having an asynchronous meeting doesn't mean getting rid of kind of the human interaction that goes into a meeting. And that's really important for your company's culture. On the contrary, it just means having an asynchronous time to work on certain time consuming projects, time consuming tasks, finding these ideas, generating feedback, that can be a little bit time consuming. And I'd rather that my live meeting be only 15 minutes, but it's really focused on jumping on the kind of going back on these ideas and working through them. So it's more of a cutting the meeting, splitting the meeting in half, and having an asynchronous part of a meeting and then a synchronous part of the meeting that's a lot more productive and efficient. All right, just making sure that everyone is following along. No questions. Perfect. Okay, no questions so far. So I'm guessing that means that everything is clear and we can move on to my next tip. So the next tip that I wanted to share with you is the idea of establishing team rituals. And I think that for many teams working remotely, one of the biggest challenges that we face is ensuring that everyone has the same level of information within the company. So we have to keep in mind that each person has their own personality, and therefore, for some, remote work can be extremely isolating. some people will be super extroverted, and so working from home and then jumping on a call and chatting with people, that'll be okay with them. Some people will be super extroverted and will miss all that interaction. And same goes for introverted people. Some introverts will love working from home because they're not really into the whole open space, or maybe just seeing people all the time. That may not be their thing. But at the same time, introverts, they have a harder time kind of blending into the work culture and talking to people and reaching out. So it's difficult when it comes to remote work, because you kind of have to find the right balance for each and every individual who will react differently to remote work. And that's why these rituals are important, is because instead of just telling people, well, if you find the time, try to do this, try to see others, try to talk to each other. Here, we are going to plan out a couple key meetings in the week that will really help build cohesion, make people feel like they are part of the team, and also ensure you as a manager that you're keeping track of everyone's tasks, everyone kind of following up on the projects, and just keeping track of everything along the way. So here, what I'm sharing with you is just this very small agenda of a week that offers different types of meetings in darker purple, the rituals that I recommend to all the managers. So first of all, I find that having a weekly team meeting on Mondays is an excellent way to start the week and really ensure a good monitoring of the main tasks. So at BCAS, what we do is we call this a weekly meeting, and it allows each manager to really kind of take stock with their teams and kind of know what are the priorities of the week, what important meetings, what important demos or projects are everyone attending, going to, following up on, etc. And this meeting can really last between 15 minutes and half an hour, depending on the size of your team, but it should remain quite short because the goal is really just to start off the week. And as a manager, it's also really an opportunity for you to share important information that everyone should know. So once again, we're talking about this level of information where you want to make sure that there's no knowledge lost. People don't feel like they don't have the same level of information. That's really important when working remotely. Now, another meeting that I recommend, you'll see this on Monday as well. I wouldn't call this a team ritual, but more of a company best practice is the all hands meeting. So here it could be every week or every 2 weeks, for example. The idea is really to invite every person in the company. So no matter the role, the job position, etc., just everyone in the company joins for this meeting. And this allows the top management to really share progress on key projects, discuss challenges, and also remind people of the company's goals. So here, in what we're not doing compared to the weekly meeting, is we're not really diving into small tasks like individual tasks. We're really looking at the company as a whole, and we're also there to answer questions, employee questions, give people just very important information when it comes to the company. And the idea is really to strengthen interdepartmental collaboration, as well as company culture, because during all hands meeting, this might be the only time in the weeks that some people from a team will talk to another team. And sometimes these people, they don't really have the ability to talk to each other, or they don't have the time, or they're not working on the same projects. So an all hands meeting is that kind of very privileged moment where someone from marketing can go talk to someone from the development team, the tech team, the design team, etc. So at BCast, we do this every Monday just before the lunch break, and it's only 15 minutes, and it allows us to kind of be aware of everything that's happening in the company. So for the rest of the week, another meeting that I highly recommend is the daily meeting to start off the day. So here, it's a bit like the weekly meeting, except that this meeting should be less than 15 minutes and should just allow managers to monitor small individual tasks for each member of the team. So I also advise for the rest of the week to do this just through Tuesday to Friday, because it's a great way to stay on track and kind of follow up on every person's individual tasks. And let me show you what this looks like right now. Perfect. So as you can see, you can now view what is a daily meeting that I participate in every day at BCast. And so for my daily meeting, I'm in the marketing team and I participate in the daily meeting with the sales team and the customer success team. And as you can see in this example, this really allows for great cohesion and it really helps us work together in a super efficient way. So here I have a colleague from the customer success team, for example, who's telling me, oh, hey, like, could we get a video for the client X, please? And so this means that I can also see like questions from my colleagues, things that I could work on with them. I can write my own little tasks. I'll show you. Let me just add the pointers so you can follow along. So these would be my individual tasks. And then I can look in the sales team. Oh, okay, Julie is meeting with the client today. She also has to send out a quote. Customer success team has a webinar planned. Oh, and good to know Julie won't be here tomorrow, so we don't have to wait for her in the daily meeting because she'll be in a demo call. Another thing that I love about this is that, once again, this does work asynchronously. So for example, if I'm Julie and I know that I won't be at the daily meeting the following day, that's okay because I can literally just go into this session after my meeting. And even though the meeting is no longer live, no one's there anymore, I can still open the session and see, oh, okay, so this is what Mark is working on today. This is what Clara is working on today. And it gives me a level of information where even if people aren't interacting with me, I can still have that information and I still know what's happening within the team. So it's just a great way to follow up on small topics, keep everyone focused and up to date on what everyone's working on. And it's a great way to start off the day. I think that when you're working remotely, it's really important to have those like 15 minutes in the day where you see people, you talk to people, because when you're working remotely, it's really easy to sometimes just keep to yourself and not really see colleagues. So doing these little short but super efficient and productive meetings are great to really build cohesion. Keep your schedule flexible with asynchronous timings, and yeah, just kind of answer all of these challenges that we face every day when it comes to remote and hybrid work. All right. Now, moving on, let me dive back into this slide right here. Perfect. So another final kind of meeting that I recommend is the cool-off meeting. And actually, I could show you this on the schedule that I was presenting. Here we go, this cool-off meeting right here. And this is just a great way to finish off the week in a really fun way. So at BCast every week, we have someone from the team prepare a little activity on Friday from 4:30, sorry, to 5. And the idea is to get everyone like together before the weekend. It's supposed to be a lot more fun and relaxed. The idea isn't to have a very formal type of meeting, but more a meeting based on interacting with your colleagues, checking up on each other, and kind of understanding how the week went for everyone. So as a manager, this is the time, this is the perfect moment for you to really kind of take the team's temperature and say, okay, so this was a good week, or this was a super stressful week for this person, etc. And I'll show you right now one of the activities that I love when we do this Friday cool-off meeting. That's how we call it. It's called the cool-off meeting. So here you can now see what we call a Nico Nico. So this is a type of agile method used by agile managers who like to work with these types of methodologies. And this is an activity that, where for people who may not know it, this is a project management activity that allows you to kind of know the feelings of each team member in an extremely visual way. So often you'll find 3 colors. Green usually means that everything's going well. Yellow is rather neutral, and red is if something is not going well at all. And with the BCast activity, we use the board activity to do the Nico Nico. And what's great about the board activity in BCast is that it allows us to add pictures. And so instead of having smiley faces or just a color, we can really interpret these pictures, and it makes it just a lot more interesting, I find, when it comes to these type of meetings. So Let me just talk you through what this would look like. Here, for example, on Monday, you can see this is me, and then this is Julie again. So, for example, if I'm going through this with my team, as a manager, I would say, okay, so it looks like Clara had a great start of the week, but then I can see on Wednesday that we have a little bit of yellow coming into the day. Thursday is the yellow, and Friday, we're back to green. So this would now be the time for me, Clara, to talk about this, say, oh, well, Thursday this happened. I felt like I hit a wall. So as you can see, it's my picture, it's yellow, but the picture actually has meaning. It's not just the color. Here for Monday and Tuesday, I have a very different picture from Friday, where Friday feels like I was a lot more calm, relaxed, more of a Zen attitude. And so my Friday looks a lot more peaceful. For Julie, as a manager, I could really come into the Tuesday and Wednesday pictures and say, okay, well, I see this was red. What happened? Was it more stress related? Was it something like what happened? And this is the time for Julie or colleagues to kind of chime in and give their feedback, and we can all learn from it and just kind of finish off the week by expressing ourselves and understand what worked, what didn't work, and how we feel about it. So it's just a really cool activity, and I highly recommend you trying it. In BCAS, there are very different ways that you can do this. You can use the board activity. You can do this in more of a survey type of activity where you poll people. You can use the canvas. Sky's the limit, and I'll let you choose. But this is just a really fun way. And once again, it's a cool team ritual to finish off the week in a much more relaxed ambiance, and just kind of create that cohesion with your team, even if you're working remotely. All right, so here are those 4 templates that I kind of just showed you along the way in this webinar. I'm going to wrap up now. We are right on time. We're 26 minutes into this webinar. And just to wrap up, as you can see, so for me, the kind of 4 templates that I would highly recommend are the all hands meeting, basically any team ritual, the daily, the weekly, an all hands meeting, the cool off meeting. These are just really great ways to create interaction, cohesion, while also not forgetting that a meeting does have to be efficient. It needs to be productive. It needs to answer a goal. And so these are meetings that you can put into place super easily, remotely, in hybrid mode, but even in person, face to face, in an office setting. And it's also a great way to ensure that no information is lost within a team, but also within a company. And that's really important as well. That's definitely a challenge that we faced early on with BCAS going fully remote. And we did have to find ways to maintain information and communication throughout the company. So then votes and polls. Remember that BCAS is also a great way to help you make simple decisions, help you also make these decisions in a time efficient way, whether you're doing this synchronously or asynchronously, like I just showed you with the Canvas activity where we did the little feedback on the launch with the DACI template. This is great because you're able to just vote for ideas asynchronously. And then when I go back on the template, I can really see, okay, so this idea is definitely a very important idea. This idea didn't seem to gather a lot of votes. So it's easy to prioritize ideas and know what's next in your project. And then I highly suggest doing feedback sessions. We kind of forget about this because we use it more in training and events, but having feedback for meetings is really important as well, especially when you are working remotely or with hybrid teams where some people may not speak up as much and it's harder to detect kind of invisible, for example, if people don't have their camera, it's really hard to know what they're thinking. You can't read body language. So having little feedback sessions where people can just say, like, I'll give this meeting 4 stars, or I'll give this meeting with the Nico, for example, like I'll say that this meeting was green, or if you start seeing yellow, if you start seeing 3 or 2 stars, then that's the time, to really ask yourself, what aren't we doing right? And how can we make this better? How can we improve our meetings to really kind of fit into everyone's work philosophy, life philosophy? It's just finding that right balance and ensuring that your company's culture really fits into everyone's work lifestyle. So just make sure to host those feedback sessions, and then just that Nico Nico, which is just a really cool template that I recommend. It's just a super visual exercise, and I think that it's great to finish off the week with your team as a manager. So I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to everyone for showing up today and for being in the chat, letting me know that you can hear me, you can see me. I saw a couple messages here and there, so thank you so much. I also just wanted to share with you some tips before we go. So the first thing is just remember that these tips, these best practices, these templates that I shared with you today, they probably will be adapted to your company's context and culture. Some companies work fully remote, so that's not the same as being a hybrid team. That's not the same as having a lot of in-person meetings. And so just feel free to kind of pick and choose what works for you and leave out what doesn't. There really is no one size fits all when it comes to hosting meetings. You have to find the right balance. You have to find what works for you, what works for your company's culture, and just make sure that you take the time to get feedback from colleagues and employees, because those are the people that need to feel motivated by these meetings. Those are the people that need to be able to balance, okay, I'm working with my team and these are productive meetings and they're efficient, but I also have the flexibility and the agility that I need to do my job and to feel motivated and to feel productive and concentrated on my tasks. So finding that balance will kind of be touch and go, but that's my second tip. It's really just finding what works for you. And so here I gave a short example, but I know that I have colleagues where when they go to the office, it's really to see people. There's a lot of socialization that goes into seeing people at the office. And so now, because of their hybrid context, they know that, well, when they're in the office, they're going to do more meetings. They're going to kind of prioritize seeing people, talking to people, and interacting face to face. Whereas when they work from home, they'll probably not like just say, okay, on Thursday, I'm working remotely, so no meetings, please. And I'm just going to move on my own tasks. I need to work on more focused projects where I'm just alone and moving through this. So once again, don't take it personally. Learn how people like to work and adapt to that as well, because that's what flexibility is all about. It's really just understanding that some people would be more productive in the mornings, or some people need more interaction in the day. Some people like to be stimulated differently when it comes to icebreakers and activities and things like that. So just learn from it, and as you go, try to progress and provide the right type of interactions, meetings, and schedules. And then finally, this is really for managers, but it works for employees as well. Just keep in touch with members of your team and stay alert. We did a whole webinar about this in the past, but we do look for what we call weak signals. These are kind of silent little signs, alerts that will happen when people feel completely disconnected. So this would be someone who enters a meeting but doesn't say hello, is more in the back, won't participate as much, probably won't answer any of the activities. These are people that are really disengaging from meetings, that are disengaging from the company. Keep those people updated, stay updated with those people, and make sure that you're getting feedback from them, that you're trying to understand why they aren't motivated, how the work culture is impacting them, and what you can do to change that and help them go through this process in the best way possible to really engage them and motivate them. So make sure to stay alert, especially in the early days. If you're changing into more of a hybrid or remote culture, it's really important to stay up to date and kind of have some touch points with people. So for example, at BCAST, we do surveys. I call them temperature checks. It's a very poorly translated way of saying that we're just going into meetings, and before starting a meeting we might have a quick little survey of how is everyone feeling today, and we're tracking that engagement on BCAST. We're tracking how people are responding, and if we see that a lot of people feel disengaged, unmotivated, unhappy, then we start to ask questions and we try to meet these people and work through this. So keep that in mind. Those are my best practices for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this webinar and learned a couple things. Let us know on social media if you use any of these templates. We love hearing from you. And I'll tell you until next time. Hope to see you very soon in our next webinar. Thank you so much for attending today. See you soon.